and I welcome all of you on this webinar on Humans to Mars. So today we have our guest, a science communicator, sci-fi writer, precisely author of Ad Martin 12, and an aerospace engineering student and an aspiring astronaut as well. So today we have here with us Giulia Bassani. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great pleasure to be here.
All right, so we've got a lots of questions here lined up, but before we start getting into all the questions, first, Julia, all of our viewers are actually really interested to know about you. So let's hear it from you.
Okay, hello, everyone. I'm a student of aerospace engineering. Right now, I'm at the third year, and I'm following my dream to become an astronaut. Other than that, I'm a writer. I wrote two novels, one of which is science fiction, while the other is a bit more, like kind of love story and action and something like that. And then I'm also the national coordinator for Italy of the Moon Village Association, which is a global association to foster the future human missions to the moon. This is more or less it.
Okay, that's really amazing. So, what made you to get into the space industry?
So everything started when I was at high school, and basically it all began when I discovered the existence of astronaut Samantha Cristoforesti, the first woman who went to the International Space Station. Because actually, like before that moment, I had no idea of the existence of an International Space Station or of the space programs in general. And so I discovered the existence of this job of the astronaut and also of aerospace engineering, which basically is studying and designing airplanes and spaceships, which is super cool, honestly. And so I kind of decided that that was what I wanted to do in my life. And so like I went for it. And that's how everything began. So it all started at high school.
That's really amazing to know that, like, having a quick start is always good, right? So,
Yeah.
coming to Mars. So, how does Mars fascinate you?
Well, Mars is the only planet we can land on if you think about it. Because, for example, Mercury is another rocky planet, but it's like burnt on a side and frozen on the other. So it's not somewhere we can land on easily. As much as Venus, which has this thick atmosphere of which is like you can't just go through it. So it's really difficult to land on it. So like the easiest one is Mars. Then all the others are gaseous planets, and maybe the moons will be interesting, but they are really too far away. So like Mars is the first step that we're going to go like that is further than the moon. So I think that's what makes it interesting. And also, it seems to be really similar to the Earth, and something that if we study Mars, we might discover a lot about the history of Earth and of the solar system. So that's very interesting.
Okay, yeah. So, all right. So we have it's just 3 minutes and we have started getting like a lot of viewers here. Like it's good to see, and even people are posting questions now. That's amazing. So,
Cool.
like yeah, I see what you said, that rest all the planets are a bit difficult to land, right? Mercury not giving you the right conditions, not even the Venus,
Yeah.
and rest planets being the gaseous planets. So, but still, like it is the fact that it's Mars is difficult, right? So, what's the most
Yeah.
challenging thing for a space agency to overcome in order to achieve Mars?
Well, there are some problems, and I think, well, leaving aside all the economic discussion, of course, I think that one of the most difficult scientific challenges that we have to overcome before going to Mars will be that of cosmic radiation, which is super dangerous for human beings, and we don't really have a solution for it yet. Like there are some ideas, but nothing is clear yet. So I think that as long as we don't have a clear solution for that problem, it will be hard to get to Mars. Then, of course, one of the other one other problem which doesn't really have a solution, but I think it's something that we just have to psychologically accept is the distance, of course. Like who's going to Mars will be completely alone because like communications take 10 to 20 minutes to travel from one planet to the other. And so like if astronauts on Mars are in an emergency, they will have to get away on their own with what they know and what they have. And I think that's really psychologically difficult and important to accept before going there.
All right. So, talking about this radiation, right? I'm pretty sure you mean the Von Allen belts, right? So, like just to know, like what possible effects are expected to be like on the spacecraft and the human beings as well.
You mean due to radiation? That's what you're asking?
Yes, exactly. The effect of radiation on the crew and the spacecraft as well.
So the problem with radiation is that like living creatures, if they get to absorb a big amount of radiation, that becomes unhealthy for the system, and it might lead to the formation of cancer and illness, like those which are really not pleasing at all. So, I mean, that's more or less the problem. Like, if I'm not wrong, radiations, by the way, for who doesn't know it, are like high energetic particles coming from deep space and from the sun that basically arrive to destroy cells and DNA, and they have they bring problems to that. So that can cause cancer and those kind of illness, and so it would be better to avoid it. Now, the astronauts on the International Space Station are protected by the magnetosphere, sorry, as well as those on the moon. If I'm not wrong, the moon is still in the protection of the Earth, the magnetic field of the Earth. But when we go to Mars, we won't have any protection at all. And also the atmosphere on Mars is very thin, so we will have to find a different solution for that.
All right. Any specific effects that spacecrafts must be protected from due to these radiations?
This I've heard that instrumentations also can be affected by radiations, but I haven't studied much about it yet. But I'm going to start a specific study on this subject this summer exactly. So after that, I will be able to tell more about this.
All right. That's really amazing. Okay. So, I was on Twitter and I came across this nuke Mars idea, right? This whole thing of nuking Mars, the poles of Mars, basically, Elon Musk was planning to do this. So, what's your take on that?
So I think Elon Musk is pretty crazy, and I don't think he was all serious about nuking Mars because, like, he wanted to nuke Mars in order to terraform it, um, and like make it similar to the Earth. But honestly, like in my opinion, I don't think we should put all our efforts into terraforming because it's not something we can talk as easily as that. I mean, we're talking about an entire planet, and it will take time and a lot of effort and money. And I think if we have to put all this effort into terraforming another planet, why don't we like solve the problems that we already have on our Earth and terraform our Earth if it's necessary? You know what I mean? And like use the other money and stuff and effort to explore further into space, no? Because if we put all our efforts to Mars, it seems like we're going to stop there. Well, Mars is not like the destination, but it is a starting point. We have to remember that. This is my opinion only, of course.
All right. So, since you talked about the whole thing of terraforming, right? So, I want you to tell viewers about like the viewers who are really new here to the webinar. I would like you to tell them about the idea of terraforming?
So terraforming basically would mean um, taking Mars, which is a desert planet, and um, make so that it has the conditions to become like the Earth. So probably make the atmosphere thicker and make the atmosphere breathable. I guess it's the English word. I'm not sure, but like with oxygen, and so like recreate the circle, the cycle of water. So bring liquid water, and rivers and seas and all of that. Like create an ecosystem similar to the Earth, but on Mars. And so nuking would have probably been a way, because it would have upset all the atmosphere, and like it would have started the greenhouse effect, which would have brought to the creation of clouds, and clouds would have brought to rain, and all the story.
Yeah. So, talking about like the Mars, right? Before we go to Mars, do you think like Moon will be a gateway to Mars?
So there are many contrasting opinions on this matter. Some think that we should go directly to Mars, and that going back to the moon is like a waste of time and resources. And there are many who think that actually going to the moon is crucial before going to Mars. In my opinion, so in my personal opinion, I think it is quite necessary to go to the moon first, because as I was saying before, Mars is super, super distant. And so I think it's important for also for the astronauts and for, to test technologies also in a place that is closer to us. So if something happens, if there's some emergency or anything, at least they're still only there, some days away of flight. Because to go to Mars, it should take like something like 6 months or 9 months, which is a lot. And it's not something that you can do if there's something that needs to be solved quickly. So I think that it's important to start testing the possibilities in a place that is closer to us before going so far away into something that we don't know anything about, basically.
All right. So, yeah. So, few days back, I was watching the Martian movie. Right. It's quite an amazing movie. Like I trust it.
Yeah.
Like I trust almost all the things that are shown in the movie, but for few things I won't. But yeah. So the question is like, how do you think it's feasible to actually colonize Mars?
Allora, so the question, it depends whether colonizing you mean bringing 1,000 people, or like just going and set a base. I can answer for both of the things. So, well, going to Mars, it will of course be possible, and it will happen probably around 2030 or 2050. It is something that is going to happen. Like in this century, we will see the first human beings set foot on planet Mars. Now, well, the first missions that we'll see, I think, will be more similar to what we're seeing now for the International Space Station. So basically, going and coming back, and every time we go, we develop something, and like maybe they're going to set a base, just like we have done for the International Space Station, which has been built in 10 years. So I think something similar will be made on the surface of Mars. And then once we have like a settlement, then probably more people will go, and maybe it will like increase. But I think that will take a lot more time. And um, like I've heard about some projects, maybe something was even by Elon Musk, to like directly bring to Mars 1,000 people and make a colonization. I think that's quite science fiction, honestly. And I think the most realistic scenario that we will see in the future will be, as I said, missions similar to those of the International Space Station, which should last like 2 years including going, staying for a while, and then coming back.
Oh, yeah. So there's this interesting question put forward by Devendra. This question is, what do you think about what do you think, how will our space exploration after 100 years be? Like he's asking about the achievements.
I didn't quite get the question. If you can repeat that.
Okay, like from 100 years from now, what all achievements do you think space exploration would have brought us?
Like what achievements you mean, like benefits to the society brought from space exploration? That's the question.
Yeah, more or less, that's the question.
Okay, so basically, I think the most right, correct answer that I can give is that we now, like right now, it is hard, it's difficult to predict what benefits, what results we will get from those missions, those future missions to the moon and to Mars. Let me just tell you that, for example, from the Apollo missions, the old Apollo missions to the moon, we got basically all the technology that we're living with every day right now, and that we didn't have before. But like we went to the moon not to have smartphones today, but this is one of the results that we have, and this is just a little example that I'm doing to let you understand that space missions are crazy because they always have so many results that we can't really predict. Not only technology, but also jobs. There will be so many jobs available that we this today still don't exist, and I think that that's something also crazy. So I think the answer is that we can't know for now yet.
All right. So I guess I hope Devendra, your question was answered. And
I
now,
hope so.
all right, yeah. So since we are talking about the technology, so recent technologies, the technological developments were the AI and virtual reality, right? So how do you
Mhm.
think like the AI and VR would be useful in exploring and sustaining life on Mars?
So I think, or actually, I've heard that artificial intelligence and robotics will be super important, or might be super important, in the development of a base on the surface, um, like before humans go. So like um, before human missions to Mars, we first send robots to the surface so that they can like kind of start building a base or a settlement on their own, so that like when humans arrive, they already have a place to go. And this is something I've heard and might be an option for the future Mars missions. For what regards virtual reality, I'm not sure right now, but I think that it could be cool, maybe, to use it like to have fake windows, literally on a base on Mars, because because of radiations, bases on Mars will have to be completely um, covered. I've heard them being made of regularly, and it should be like thick walls without windows and very something like that in order not to let radiations in. But being in a closed environment, it can cause problems to the astronauts' sight. So, like maybe having virtual windows, it will help them to solve this problem. I thought of this now. I'm not sure if it is something that can be done, but
All right. No, no. So yeah. So like I got to know that you've also written the book by the name Ad Martin 12. So
yeah.
why don't you tell us about that book?
So at Martin 12 is the story of the first human beings um, that were born on Mars, and the protagonists are teenagers that are in fact Martians. Um, But interesting thing is that they're human, so they're not different than any other teenager on Earth. The only difference is that they are on Mars and they were born there. And so, like, because of this reason, they have a complete different view and perspective on humans and on the Earth itself. They have no contact with Earth at all, apart from like the astronauts and what they hear and what they learn. And so, at a certain point, they start wondering questions about themselves and about their origins, and they start on an adventure to find the answer to those questions. But the problem is that Mars is a dangerous environment where you can't like easily break the rules, like it could be fatal. And so, like, it's an adventure, and things happen. I won't spoil anything. But I think that what's also interesting about Martin 12 is that it is completely based on scientific studies, because I brought it after a contest, an engineering contest for which I developed the project of a base on Mars. And then I set the story inside that base. And so basically then I continued my studies in order to make every event like scientifically realistic, or as much as I could at least.
All right. So, yes. So this is actually the next question is my favorite one because I've been asking this
Okay.
question to Anima ma'am also. Then we had Bailey Burns. We also asked her the same question, and even Yumna.
Bailey,
Yumna, we
she's so
had,
cool.
yeah, exactly. So we had Yumna Majid also, and I was asked her the same question. So the question is a safe to and fro, like a safe journey to ISS from where you can come back as well, or just a one-way journey to Mars.
Hands down, I would immediately answer one safe trip to an international space station. I wouldn't want to go to Mars and stay there forever if I had to choose, honestly. Like I would still want a job as an astronaut and go to space and do experiments in space, but then go back to Earth. By the way, if I can add something, it is not going to happen that we go to Mars and stay there. Like, there were some ideas about going and staying, about this one-way trip to Mars, but it's not realistically possible to make that happen, because um, you cannot just send people to Mars and then leave them there. You have to keep them alive, and that is expensive. It's not a simple thing, and it's not like um, as simple as you can think. So, uh, of course, as I said before, the first missions will be quick go and come back, just like on the International Space Station. So I think there will be no there won't be this problem of choosing whether to go live there or not. I think then you never know.
All right. So, like we've till date, like there have been lots of mission to Mars, right? So I just wanted to know what's your favorite ones.
My favorite mission to Mars. You mean of the past missions that have already been made?
Now, the missions that have been to the Mars, and among those,
Okay.
your favorite ones.
Ah, well, I would probably say, okay, this might sound a little foregone, but I would answer Curiosity, the Curiosity rover, because like sometimes I see pictures from that rover of the Martian surface, and it's so fascinating to see the surface of an alien world, and it's just crazy. Like I stare at those pictures and like imagine myself being on that surface, and it's just crazy. So I would say Curiosity probably.
Like imagining yourself on those surfaces, something very much similar to what I see. Because, like with respect to the last question that I asked, that journey to Mars or ISS, my answer has always been I would love to go to Mars because for some reason I just feel like it's better to die there and be a hero. Like that's what I
Oh,
answered. Yeah, yeah. So,
okay, okay. Well,
so talking about the physical and the mental health challenges, right? So, like, what do you think? What all challenges will human face when they're going for the Mars mission?
Well, as I said before, I think that most of the mental challenges faced by astronauts are due to the distance and like something that is crazy about Mars is that when you are on the surface, like now I'm talking about it as if I've been on Mars, but I haven't. I'm just imagining it. However, something crazy is that when you're on the surface and like look at the night sky, um, the Earth is just a bright dot among all the other stars, and like you wouldn't almost recognize it. Like, and I think that's just mind blowing. I mean, you don't see your planet, and like that will be the first time that we're pulling so far away that we won't see our planet again. Like that's so crazy because like on the International Space Station, astronauts have the Earth just there, you know. Um, on the moon, they still see the Earth, but on Mars, they won't see it again. And I think that's just crazy to think about. There are some really huge psychological factors that will have to be taken into consideration that I think are really hard to overcome. But I mean, it will be interesting to see, to know what it will feel like. And yeah, I think that's like one of the biggest source of problems, of psychological problems and challenges that could come out, because then there is all the discussion of emergency that can come, and the communication. You cannot have conversations with anyone that's on Earth, and this stuff.
So like I guess there is the astronauts have got are actually planning for this the same issue, right? They are trying to deal with this mental and psychological effects. Like they have got bases set at Utah, and they're just trying to live together and then just trying to get better at these things, right? So all
Yes,
right, so there's an
there are
interesting.
many. I was saying that there are many like examples of like living on Mars with similar bases in on the deserts here on Earth. But I think it's still different, because while you're there, but you still know you're on Earth. If you think about it psychologically, I think it will be different in any way.
uh, so we've got an interesting comment here by Sunny Cabrawala. It says, Deepak, we won't let you die on Mars till we get another host. that's that's really nice to know.
Great. I can host you. I can host if you're going to die there.
All right, so
No,
now
I'm just
we'll
kidding.
just take some few. We've still got some few questions on the list, but I guess now we should go for the questions that we got online.
Okay.
All right. So, what are your views on Mars settlement by Patan Vyas?
My view on what?
What are your views on Mars settlement?
On Mars settlement. Well, I think that's fundamental step that we're going to have to do um, in space exploration. Space exploration is the future, and what like we cannot deny that, because it is something that will have to happen sooner or later. Better if sooner, because if you think about it, the sun will explode in 4 billion of years, and we better not be there when that happens. So what do we have to do? We have to go somewhere else. And how do we do that? We start by doing steps, and the first steps to that is going to Mars, which is the first planet that we have right there, and where we can test how it is to fly farther and go somewhere else. And then we'll go farther, we go to the moons, and then somewhere in the future we'll um, push as far as other stellar systems and interstellar flight. Um, I guess it will have to necessarily happen at a certain point. And Mars is just a first step, and I think that's the reason that makes it necessary. It's just for our future survival, I guess. If we talk about like the very, very far future, if we talk about like some more short term, I would say that anyway, Mars missions will be super important for the benefits that it will bring to our society for the same reasons that I said before.
Okay, so all right. There are a few more questions here. Okay, this interesting one. This is quite good. Is there any temperature factors which are harmful for humans in space?
Um, which is harmful. Well, microgravity itself is quite harmful for the human body, um, because when astronauts are floating, they're not using muscles and bones, and when that happens, like our body tends to get rid of everything that is unnecessary or is not used. So when you're not using your muscles and your bones, then the body starts like to get rid of them, and so that's when the muscular atrophy starts, and you start having those kind of problems. And that's why the astronauts always have to do sports even while in space, and like to um, do gym, I guess. That's really, really, really important. And then, of course, radiations, and yeah, I think these are the two most harms that can come from space flight.
All right. So okay, fine. So five few more questions here. All right. So is there some sort of average temperature in space? I don't know if that makes sense at all, but still.
Can you please repeat that?
Is there any average temperature in space?
What does that mean? I didn't. Are there any average what?
Average temperature in space.
Temperatures. Um, from what I know, it is close to the absolute zero.
Oh,
Uh,
hmm.
it's really, really cold. Let's just say so.
Yeah. I mean, the face of yours, like if you are floating out there in space and the face of yours, which is not facing towards the sun, it's going to be really frozen, right? And the one
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
facing towards the sun is going to
exactly.
be relatively hot.
Yeah, there is also, yeah, that problem of being faced to the sun or not. That's also
Yeah,
why like spacecraft have to be able to like um, endure temperatures that are really, really hot and really, really cold at the same time,
yeah.
which is a bit crazy for materials, but yeah, it's one of the challenges as well.
Okay, yeah. So this another question which is very much similar to the what you were saying, like if our body tends to get rid of things that we don't use, right? So would the less Martian gravity be a problem for humans as it can weaken our bones?
You mean the Martian gravity?
Yes.
Um, well, I would say so because I mean we were born on Earth and we are made to live on Earth. So as soon as the Earth conditions change, we start having problems. And the on Mars there is gravity, but it's lower. It's one third than on Earth. So it's not exactly like on the Moon, where astronauts like jump very high, but it's like it's similar. It's similar on Mars, just not as much low. But I think it would still get some problems because we would be like lighter than on Earth, and um, I guess astronauts will still have to do daily workouts and physical activity in order to keep their muscles going, you know. This is actually,
Or
you know, this is actually a problem for when children will have to be born on Mars. We still don't know if like microgravity and all will affect pregnancy and all this stuff. This is also something we still don't know, and we just have to find out, I guess.
yeah, yet to be studied. All right. So, if any sudden emergency comes on Earth that it is not habitable for humans, then can humanity still be alive? Mm, okay, I guess I don't know. Like, if you want to answer this question, quite hypothetical, but still we can take this.
So they ask if the Earth becomes inhabitable.
Yes, yes, exactly. If the Earth becomes inhabitable all of a sudden, so is it still feasible for the humanity to survive? Like, are there ways through which humanity will be able to survive?
Whoa! Oh my God! I'm going to write a novel on this one. um, so I would say that in that case, space exploration would be really useful because it might, like, you know, help build bases and stuff or things like that, and like habitable um, settlements and environments down here on Earth, as much as we would do in on an inhabitable planet like the like Mars or like on our moon, for example. I think space exploration would come in handy in that case. This is so crazy. What a question, though. I like that one.
I mean, we always get quite an interesting audience. We always get these kind of good questions here.
Yeah.
So yes, so there's this another question. If you go to Mars,
Okay.
then what will you do there first?
Look around and say, "Wow, it's flat." No, I'm kidding. um, well, well, you know what? To realistically speaking, um, uh, if I were an astronaut who who went to Mars, I would have such a strict schedule to follow that I will not get to decide what to do, but I will have to follow orders about what I have to do, and I don't think that's something that I can predict just now.
All right. So apart from Mars, are there any other planets or moons that you want to go to?
Well, our moon is not that bad, also, you know. I wouldn't mind going there. Um, Otherwise, Uh, I have a big passion for Titan, of course, on Saturn, because Titan is crazy because it's basically the Earth but with methane instead of water, which is and the other moon which I would love to visit, but which is a little bit inhospitable, I guess, will be Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter, and I just love it because it's basically an ocean, but under um, a layer of ice, and it seems that in that ocean under the layer of ice, there are the conditions for life to form. It seems so, like there could be alien dolphins, and that is amazing. So yeah, that's one of my favorite books. This is close to science fiction also, but it's good too. It's nice to imagine sometimes.
And the same similar kind of fictional answer idea we had in the previous webinar where Yumna was telling us that she wants to actually bring back the dinosaurs, and we could have dinosaurs like in ISS or something. Like it was quite fictional.
I don't
Okay,
think that would
so
be a good idea.
I mean, having small dinosaurs is not that big a problem, but bigger dinosaurs is not an option.
Well, we have lizards.
So, If we were able to settle on Mars, will there be laws applicable on its surface like different countries or borders? This question is by Shant Sabaya.
Um, I don't think so. Uh, God, it's really difficult to answer this one. Well, of course, at the beginning there won't be, I guess. I mean, let's take the International Space Station, for example. It is a collaboration of many countries. Like, there are many countries on the International Space Station, and there are many like sections, nodes of the station that are like, there is the Italian section, the Russian one, the American one, and the Japanese one. Um, but like, they're not real borders. They are all together and collaborate together, and I think there will be something similar on Mars at first. I don't think I can talk about the future when there will be a proper like colonization with a lot of people, and there will be maybe a Mars city even. Then uh, I I don't know. Maybe yes or maybe no. It's really difficult to answer that one just yet.
So personally, I would say like space is something which unites all the nations. So I guess Mars shouldn't have any international borders or anything like that.
Yeah, I
So
think so as well, but we don't know.
exactly,
That's
we
a
don't know.
beautiful idea. Yeah.
So how was your experience of meeting Tom Hiddleston?
Is this a real question?
This question isn't there in the live chat by Sunny Cabral.
um, it was pretty good actually. He's a nice person. Um, I met him in London after his theatrical play, and he was outside waiting for fans basically, and I just walked up to him, shook his hand, and introduced myself, said that I wrote a book, and gave it to him, and like we just exchanged a couple of words, and he's really kind, and took my book, and I don't know if he read it or will ever read it, or maybe he's already forgotten. I wouldn't be surprised. But it's been a nice experience. I'm a big fan of Tom Hiddleston, and Loki in the Marvel universe.
Okay, so now, like, as of now, we can see that this is the era of startups, right? So, how do you think that the upcoming space startups can help to colonize Mars rapidly?
um, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. We know that this is the era of startups, right? So,
A
how do you
startup?
think the
Okay, yeah.
upcoming space startups can help to colonize Mars rapidly?
Well, I think they can be great supporters for agencies. Um, like just for example, the SpaceX of Elon Musk. I think he can be a great support and help for NASA when it will come also to go to the moon, for example, with Artemis missions, because I think NASA is planning to use the SLS rocket, but I don't think that's feasible. So probably SpaceX will help. And so yeah, I think that startups are would be a great way for first of all, technological innovation, and then like help provide big agencies with new technology that can be then used to actually go to space and do the stuff.
Okay, so yes, this question is by Adityan Rajesh. He asks, is
Okay.
Europa a better option too? Because underwater oceans will give an insight on how life works.
Uh, I'm not sure. I think it will be interesting to dig into Europa to find out what's hiding under the surface, and see whether there actually are the conditions for life, and like do relevations. I don't know if that's the right English word. Um, like to see chemically what's going on under there. I don't know if this answered the question.
It's fine. Like it's all right. So
Okay.
okay. So Devendra has been actually putting a lot of questions here. I see. What kind of natural resources on Mars? Okay, so his question is actually, I guess, what kind of resources will be helpful for the humanity on Mars?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the regolith on the surface, like the sand that you find on the surface, that can be used to build bases. Because it seems that can shield cosmic radiation, so it is possible that future bases will be made of Mars in itself, actually. And then, other than that, there is water, but it is in ice form and probably at the poles. So like that iced water might be mined to get liquid water to drink or for usage anyway. Um, and then in the atmosphere there is carbon dioxide for at the 95%. So like carbon dioxide can be used in if I'm not wrong, Sabatier reaction, or anyway, chemical reactions to get oxygen and water again. So there are some resources that can be used.
Okay, so having known all about the resources that we can use, uh, this next question is similar. Like, what all minerals and metals can be mined from the Martian soil?
Uh, I would say, I don't quite remember this one. I mean, there is a lot of iron in the Martian sand, but there are a lot of other elements as well, like um, oxide. But actually, I'm not sure if there's something in particular of minerals that can be mined and used for any particular usage from the Martian surface. But I wouldn't say I'm not expert in about this, so I don't know exactly about the mineralogy of the surface.
All right. So there are a few more questions that we have on the list, like just two questions, and few more questions will be there on the I'm sorry, these birds. Yeah, so few more questions from the live chat as well. So
Okay.
Star actually believes space for everyone. So what's your take on that?
Space is absolutely for everyone. It is. I mean, space is exactly. I mean, we are all the same. We're all the same in front of space. Like space is the same challenge for every one of us. Space doesn't look at us differently. And I think that's really beautiful. Um, the International Space Station is a collaboration of many different countries, and it is a masterpiece. It is the greatest um, artwork ever created by human beings and put into orbit. And so I think that with collaborations and with collaborations we can go really far and do really amazing things. Like so and so I think space is really something that unites the world, and I think it's really important for this reason.
All right. So it was actually good to have your insight on this question, because we actually believe that space is for everyone. We have had this question, like answers for this question from all of the previous webinar panelists that we had.
Okay.
Um, okay, so this question is by Ishant Sabaya. He asks, can we place very big magnets on the pole of Mars to solve solar radiation?
um, I think that would be a good theory, but in practice, engineeringly speaking, I don't think that would be possible. So I would say no. But I mean, if you have an idea, do not hesitate to. Don't let me stop you from developing it further because you never know in science.
So the answer is, well, yes, but actually no.
Exactly. Yes, but actually no.
Exactly. So, fine. So, like, since we talked about that host thing, like, I'll die on Mars, then you'll be hosting the show. I guess it's I've got to go there. All right. So, one last
Okay.
question on the list. A message to all the space pioneers.
Um, okay. My message is um, it is actually something that I've learned from my own experience, and it is if you, I know you guys have a dream, and I know that maybe you're afraid to follow it because it's too hard or too big. Don't be afraid because that dream is what is going to help you during dark periods and difficult periods. It's what will keep you going, and it will be your engine during every um, part of your life. And it's also I think it's important to have something to always um, look up to, look forward for, and like strive for. So whatever your dream is, no matter how high it is, no matter if you're going to actually achieve it or not, but don't be afraid to follow it and go forward. You're going it's going to give you a lot, trust me.
All right. So, so since we still have like few minutes left, there's another question. What is a future habitable planet other than a what? I'm not quite getting this question. Um, all right, let's leave it. Um, okay, what is your okay, he repeated the same question. I guess.
Maybe okay,
No.
maybe they're asking where else we can go in our solar
Yeah.
system other than on Mars.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Hehe, that's a very hard question. I would say the moons of Jupiter and Saturn might be our only option because, as I was saying before, it will be a bit difficult to go to Mercury or Venus, which are the other rocky planets. So I would say our only other option would be to go land on the moons, on the rocky moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and see what is going on over there. I would say
In that case, I
because
really suggest like hmm, yeah.
you know otherwise there will be Plato or Pluto. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's too far away, so a little bit hard.
So actually, like this answer is like what I would say is quite hypothetical because now you can really rely on the exoplanets that we found. But then in that case, the only way you can go there is by the spacecraft that has got antimatter energy propulsion system. Like that's what I learned
Yeah.
watching Rick and Morty. Right. So
Yeah.
you can actually rely on these things. All right. So I guess
Well,
we're now.
yeah.
Yeah, you want to say something?
No, I mean, we have discovered a lot of exoplanets, and we will
Yeah.
have to go over there sometimes, I guess. But it will be a far future anyway.
So it
That's
was
all.
really an amazing experience having Julia on the show, and we are out of all the questions, right? I hope all the questions that were
Okay.
put in the live chat were also answered. So, like, quite an interesting audience we had here, and it was really interesting to talk with you as well, Julia. So, thanks for sharing your time.
Thank
Right?
you. Thank you. No, it was a great pleasure. Super fun. Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I hope everybody had really nice insight to having the Mars mission where we will be sending humans finally in the future. And about the
Yeah.
next webinar, guys, just so you know, we'll be having Mr. George Salazar for the challenges of human exploration beyond Earth orbit on 11th of May. And to know more about him, you can definitely Google him. He's quite a famous personality out there in NASA. You'll get to know a lot about him. And then we'll be meeting on I guess we have. Okay, fine. Whatever the schedule is, you'll get it on the page, right? So don't worry. So it was really good to have all of you. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you, everyone.